Hey guys, um, today or this week, I guess, we're doing the behavior modification theory. Um, this theory was developed by Skinner in 1948. His work was influenced by Watson and Thorndike, and we'll talk about some of the influences here in a little bit. So this theory basically just teaches techniques of how to change behavior by utilizing the positive and negative reinforcements. And it's often used with kids as they're growing up, as well as people who have developmental disabilities. So this is Skinner. This is a quote that I like by him. It says, "Education is what survives when what has been learned has been forgotten." So in his theory, he believes that behavior is formed by the consequences of your actions. So whether that's positive or a negative consequence. And then in this slide, it also talks about that's our positive reinforcements, which is rewards. And then I'll just read this part. It says, "Behavior weakens when not followed with positive reinforcement. It is also weakened by punishment." So those are like the two main ways that we're going to be changing our clients' behavior. So this is a little cycle. So first we're obviously going to identify the problem. Then we're going to establish the decision criteria. Then we're going to weigh the decision that was made. And then if we need alternatives, we'll develop them then. And then you're going to evaluate those alternatives as well. And then you're going to choose the best one. And then you're going to implement it. So like most steps 1 through 7 is going to be you thinking about like what is the best reinforcement that this client is going to need, and then you evaluate it, and then it just goes through the cycle again like it normally does. So we have punishment and positive reinforcement, which are, again, the two main things that are going to influence the behavior changes in the clients. So punishment is when a negative consequence is the outcome of the undesirable behavior. And then the positive reinforcement is basically just rewards. So I like to think, and it's kind of confusing, like positive reinforcement obviously is positive, and you would think that punishment is negative, but that's actually not the case. Negative reinforcement is different from punishment. So there's a couple different theories that this was based on. One of the main ones was operant conditioning, which is somewhat similar to classical conditioning. If you guys are familiar with that, we'll talk about that next. But it's basically where your behavior is controlled by your consequences. So that's going to include the reinforcements, positive and negative, as well as the punishment. So the operant conditioning, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Skinner box, but that's basically where Skinner put a rat or mouse in a box, and every time it would push this lever, it would get a treat or some kind of food. And so the rat learned that every time it would push this button, it would get food. So that's kind of how that works. The next I mentioned is classical conditioning, which most people are usually pretty familiar with. This is where there's two stimuli that are paired, so you start to associate them with each other. So the work that Pavlov did was with this dog, and he would ring a bell and then present the dog with some food. And so eventually, once the dog got food, it would salivate. And eventually, the dog would automatically start salivating after it heard the bell, or the tone because it knew that food was coming. Even if food wasn't presented to the dog, it would still salivate because it associates those two stimuli together. And then if you guys want to pause me and watch a super cool video, it's one I was showed in high school and I really liked it. You'll have to type it in because I don't think you can copy this link. But it's where this roommate does like this classical conditioning on his roommate with like shooting him with a dart gun. It's pretty funny. So you can watch that now. Okay, I hope you watched the video. So we're going to move on to unique language, which we're going to have our ABCs, which the A stands for, I hope I say this right, antecedent, which is just like previous behaviors or actions that are causing the need for the change. Then we have the current behavior and the consequence from the behavior. A lot of people associate consequences always being negative, but they can actually be positive as well. We also have our observations, which includes these three: the frequency recording, duration recording, and the instantaneous time sampling. So the frequent recording is counting and recording each occurrence of behavior within a certain time frame. So it's most commonly going to be used with behavior that occurs at a low rate or in small amounts of time. Duration recording is so you're going to record the length of time for the target behavior that occurs during the period that you're observing them for, so the observation period. And then the instantaneous time sampling is recorded as occurring or not occurring during intervals of observation. So it's kind of like a check yes or no type of deal with that one. So unique attributes, this theory, includes a terminal objective. It's strongly based on the reinforcements that we had talked about. And then they include the overt and covert, which is, as it says, open actions and knowledge. So just being open about the behavior that is unwanted and the behavior that you're trying to gain. So desired outcomes, I feel like obviously change behavior, it's in the name. And each outcome, like always, is going to be tailored to the person that you're working with. So it just kind of depends on their goals and their specific behavior that they're trying to change. So there's a few different assessment tools that are utilized in this theory, and that includes the functional behavior assessment, which measures behaviors and the intent of the client's actions. So why are they acting the way that they are? And it has a set way to measure those behaviors. Then there's the Denver Development Screening Test, which measures the cognitive behavior problems in preschool clientry. Next, we have the Agitated Behavior Scale, which is going to measure the behavior aspects when recovering from an acquired brain injury. So that's really specific to, obviously, brain injuries and not just all behavior that you're trying to change. So the population that this theory serves best is with children, because they're still growing, they're still learning what is good and what is bad or unacceptable. And then also individuals who have developmental disabilities is really common to work on this area and their behavior as well. And then these are my sources. So I hope this was helpful, and I guess we'll see you guys around. If I can figure out how to stop the video first, maybe.